What's up, dudes? It's Josh, and welcome to part 2 of my feature-length video series on replacing your hot water heater, or more specifically, how I replaced my hot water heater. Yes, it's a comprehensive, long, boring video, but I don't want to skip over anything. I like to think of this second one as the Matrix 2 of water heaters, where every character is a water heater. Okay, bad example. If you're confused, go back to part 1. But we're going to pick up and we're going to install all the water connections to the water heater. And yes, that includes the famed, the mysterious, fantabulous tank booster device that I promised in the last video. We're going to install it. We're going to talk about it. We also get to see my trials and tribulations with soldering copper for the first time. It's an action-packed episode. Enjoy! Okay, checking out the connections on the top here. Obviously, the red is the hot, and if you didn't know, it says hot. So let's get that out of there. It's a cool little pluggerito. Trash. Fail. All right, so that left us with a female threaded connection. Brass. So important to note, this is brass. So I don't need a dielectric connection here because it's brass into polybutylene in the tank. So it's not a steel tank like most hot water heaters. So I don't need a dielectric connection. So I can connect right here, right to here with something. This in the center is the T&P valve. So what that does is, if the tank gets overpressurized, it will let out a little toot and shoot the water out so you don't have an explosion. So what that normally does is that's normally discharged outside. As you can see, my previous one just discharged into the drain pan, which does have a connection to drain outside. I'm sure it's terrible, but either way, that's what we're going to go back with here. But, you know, here we used a big copper pipe. And I went to go look at copper pipes, and they're expensive. So I figured I could connect to this with PEX because it's cheap. So let's do that. So it has a 3/4 inch female connection, just like this guy. So connecting to it, we need a male connection to a PEX. So let's see what that looks like. So this is a 3/4 by 3/4 male adapter to PEX barb fitting. So that's what that looks like. So that's going to go onto there, and it's going to allow us to put a PEX pipe out, kind of come out here, go 90 down, and straight into the pan just like that. And I'll be able to use a PEX pipe. All right, so we got our thing wrapped in PTFE tape. We're going to connect it there. So I normally go hand tight, and then a 1/4 turn with a wrench. That would seem too easy. Let's go a little bit more. Okay, that's getting tighter. Gonna leave that alone. We got our, PEX 90 here, because it's gonna go down. Easy enough. And here's the final look at that T&P valve. Like I said before, make sure you check your local codes and see if you can use PEX here or not. I don't want you to get rejected on your inspection. Got a plumbing blanket. It's like a heat shield. This one's from Flazzled Flame Shield Warrior. Yeah, that's a cheapo whatever was on Amazon type deal. Got our tube reamers. Okay, we got our Odie brand flux. We have our whatever Harris brand random brushes. Harris brand solder. This is lead free. You have to have lead free because you don't want to drink lead. It's bad for you. Propane torch kit that I got from Ace, 20 bucks, thereabouts. Smells nice. It's kind of fun. It's like painting. The F&W valve is supposed to be open, but I'm going to have to do it at like a 45 here. Or I've seen people recommend wrapping it with a wet cloth here. Who knows if that's going to work or not. That's hilarious. Okay, so they say heat up the pipe first, then move to the cup, and then hit it with your solder. And let's get the solder ready. This is my first solder joint, just FYI. Hopefully it's not terrible. Well, I'm having issues. There we go. Apparently you can't turn your thing upside down. I think that's my problem. I think my towel is screwing this up. There we go, much better. That's how it's supposed to look. And the award for most way too much use of solder is me. Apparently using the wet rag maneuver was just not a good plan. So part of this tank overhaul thing is to get a tank booster. The process is pretty simple. It's a temperature control valve that sits on the top of your heater. The idea is you set your temperature of your internal tank temperature to higher, like 140. And then, so that's at a higher temperature. And then this valve right here, you set the dial here and it takes water from your cold side inlet and mixes it to that correct temperature. So you got hotter water in your tank and you're using cold water to temper it to a temperature. So you're using less hot water as you use your tank. It makes it so your tank uses less hot water over time, which would basically mean you get a longer shower. So we're gonna try it out. You know, it's easy to remove if not, and that's why I've got, you know, I'm connecting making the final connections with these flexible, you know, connectors. So I'm not soldering in place. So these guys will be able to, you know, if this thing doesn't work and it's a total fail, I'll be able to undo it with some wrenches and stuff, and you know, after I shut off the water, and it will be easy to take out. So we're gonna give it a try. Going to pause the install for just a second to cover a common criticism with this tank booster setup, and that is, now that I have hot water temperature set higher in my tank, can't I just control the water temperature at the valve myself? Like, just turn the shower valve to temper the water just like you would normally do when you're in the shower. And the answer is yes, you can do that and you could save money, but you have to remember the following very important thing. You now have hotter temperature water coming out of your faucet. So that means you have the potential to burn yourself with that water. So if you have kids, it's very important to have this valve installed because it regulates the temperature for you and you don't have to worry about it. And as you can see from these numbers, at the normal water temperature, you're going to be able to have some time to react, to turn it down. But if you are using the higher water temperature, you have seconds or second to make a reaction, or you're going to get burned. So that means those of us with touchy water control valves on the shower or tub are going to possibly burn ourselves very easy, because I'm looking at the delta ball here, and we all know the difference in a centimeter of turning is the difference from frigid to molten lava hot. Another advantage and consideration of this system is setting your temperature higher on your tank prevents Legionella bacteria, which is a concern in most water heater tanks that are set at 120 or below. And back to the install. So on the hot side is where you got your actual, you know, where the magic happens, and that's where this valve goes. And it's got a It's got an arrow so you know which way it goes, but that doesn't go together, obviously, so I'm going to have to get a nipple to go between here and here. So that's pretty easy. Brass nipple connects those two, right? But look how close I am to the ceiling. I'm not really happy about that. And that would have to mean that my, you know, flexible hose is going to have to be really tight, really close to this ceiling here. I'm not a big fan. So what I'm going to do is go to the store and get a 90 3/4 inch threaded male to male 90. That'll allow me to come off of that, go into this. This thing is, so what it is it sits on here normally, and it's got a hose that goes from this side that gets from your, you know, your cold water. Here's your temperature control, and here's your output. So we're gonna put it in horizontally. We're gonna see if that's possible. See if we can explain this. A 90 out of here coming up, and that'll let us go this way. Connect this guy in. It's gonna suck to have to reach this temperature control valve up and down, but we'll be able to figure that out. And then we'll have the hose come up and then go connect to there. Cold side, we got the same thing. You got this thing on the back, which is like a backflow preventer or a relief valve for the cold side, so it doesn't get overpressure, same way as the TPR, but on the cold. So it's got a female connection there. So this guy gets Teflon taped, connected up to that. This is the connection for the hose, and then you're back to having a nipple here. So I'm gonna have to do the same thing. All right, using combination on these guys of Teflon tape and T+2 by Rector Seal PTFE pipe dope. All they had in the store was female pipe 90s. So many nipples. These guys don't need pipe dope on them because they have a gasket in there already. So according to the instructions, the one with the strainer seal on it, so if you see there's a strainer in there, that goes on your cold. So let's go in here. Okay, there's that one. It does flex, that's good. It's kind of what you want out of a flex hose. They did say to snug these up with a wrench. Okay, I think that's pretty dang tight. Tank booster installed. So yeah, I'll be able to solder on one of these guys, and what that is a 3/4 inch sweat or, you know, solder connection to, wow, that is beat up threads. I might get a different one, threaded. So that's gonna go on there. I'll be able to take Mr. Hose. I think I'll be able to go straight from here to there. Okay, that will complete the connection for the hot side, because this thing's going to get heavy. It needs to be 100% supported. Alright, I think it's doable. Just got to measure a lot. So this is a dry fit layout here. So we got our valve that we soldered in. Got a piece connecting the valve to this T. This T goes up, and this is the dielectric union. It has a piece between it, the T, and the dielectric union. So this sleeve here gets soldered on. It's gonna have to be done separately and cooled down because it has this little thing that goes with it. So from this T, it comes out, goes over, hits a 90, goes up, one more little piece, and then just a 3/4 inch threaded fitting, and that allows us to hit our flex hose. Flex hose goes up to hit the hot, or to hit the cold here. Coming out hot here, going up through the tank booster, through this flexible connection, down over to same thing, 3/4 inch on this side, soldered on this side. So I have to make, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 solder connections, plus one more at the top for this. So I'm gonna have to take this off right now, solder all that stuff, because this little gasket can't get hot or it will melt. So it's gonna have to be done last. I know it's a lot of connections here, but this total process of putting together all these solder connections only took about 20 minutes to set up and solder together. So don't be intimidated. It's actually pretty fast once you get going and the pipe is heated up. So as I was soldering, you might notice those pipes were very loose. I decided to, fab something up here to just support all of them and end up going all the way to the rafters here just to keep it in place. This last solder connection is the dielectric nipple or the dielectric union, and I wanted to make sure to get it on camera because I couldn't find very much on how to. Very important to put that plastic gasket and that hex head threaded thing on the pipe before you solder this part on. I put the wet rag up there to and the heat shield to kind of cover it as you solder this sleeve on. It solders in just like anything else. And so afterwards, you can see that gasket is on the pipe still. You put the other blue gasket or whatever color gasket is on the other side of the threaded connection, and you can slide that threaded hex nut up to connect the two. So now you got a watertight connection there that's not touching steel to copper, and that's what prevents that corrosion. And it's needed here for this steel tank. And that makes it easy to slide on. And doing up these flexible connections as the last step. And as you can see, space considerations were not great because I didn't take into account the tank being there. So not my favorite, but hey, it's flexible, so that ended up working to my advantage here. So after I thought about it for a while, I didn't like how this X setup was holding this thing. It seems like it's kind of at an angle. I think the best way to support it is to have something directly overhead. See how it's, this piping strap is pulling to the side here. I mean, I try to do a little bit here by going over there, but I think what the best bet would be something directly above it. So I mounted this board directly above it, and I'm going to build like a cross shape here and just zip tie these holes together. And here it is at the end. It looks about kind of the same, but at least this time let me strap it a little harder on there, and it's not right next to this connection point like it was before. But yeah, the zip ties work pretty well. If I was going to redo this again, I'd probably try to orient it where it's completely flat over something, and the board's not to the side like on a Raptor, but I think it works pretty well. And we're going to put a pin in it right there for this section of the video. Hopefully I have not overtaxed your attention muscles. Stick around for part 3, and until next time, get out there and go do some stuff.